Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Mohammed Faheem, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Mohammed Faheem.
Good morning, folks, and welcome to the Lightning Strike post-election first show today. And you might be thinking that we will be focusing on that today, but I need to talk about something else, something very important that's happening, and that is what our so-called president is doing. I don't know whether he is alive or not, but the reports are that he may be not alive. And I'm talking about Netanyahu over here, okay, not Donald Trump. But okay, Sheila. Okay. So Sheila is chuckling on that. We do have our team here on the Lightning Strike today. And if you'd like to join the conversation, the number to call in is 773-763-9278. And the segment is What's on Your Mind? It's sponsored by Ray Hanania of Hanania.com. And we have got Brendan Bond joining us today. Good morning, Brendan.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
Okay, so Brendan is our new recruit on the team, and very happy to have him on. We also have Chris Hilbert on. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Okay. Mike Patino, his laptop crashed this morning. That's the excuse that he's giving us, but he is joining us on the phone. Good morning, Mike. Can you hear us?
Good morning. I certainly can. Thank you.
Okay. And Read Bible, I think, ate something bad. So he's got some kind of a bad stomach. And hopefully that will not keep him from coming on and mouthing his things off. We have asked him to call in. And let's hope that, Reed feels up to it. But I wanted to talk about boots on the ground, folks. We keep on hearing this phrase, boots on the ground. What does that phrase really mean? It sounds strategic, clinical, almost harmless, but let's strip it down. Okay? Boots on the ground means someone's son, someone's daughter, someone's husband or wife packing a bag, saying goodbye, and stepping up to serve our country, right? Stepping up into a war that they did not choose. It means a mother sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her phone, waiting for a message that simply says, I'm okay. We will be joining by a Marine this morning. Ken Bentley will be joining us at about 8:20 to talk about the human cost of war. Okay, so boots on the ground again. It means children growing up with birthdays missed, graduations watched on a screen, and sometimes a folded flag instead of a parent coming home. That is the human cost. And we don't talk about it enough. We talk about strategy, right? Strategy. We talk about alliances. We talk about geopolitics. Yeah, Trump could do this. Trump could do that. We got a former Fox News host, as our Secretary of Defense. Okay, Mike, if you can please unmute or mute yourself. I think you're coming in. Okay, but no problem. So coming back to my rant, we don't talk about the 22-year-old who just started a career, now putting that life on hold or losing it entirely. You saw how many bodies came back recently. Yeah, they come back in body bags, folks. And those are not the sons and daughters of our politicians. We don't talk enough about the veteran who comes back, not the same person carrying wounds you can't see. And we will talk to Ken about that today. And we don't talk about the marriages that don't survive deployment, the careers that disappear, the futures that never get built. Because once those boots hit the ground, everything changes. And here's the harder question we have to ask. Why are they there? Are they defending this country? Or are they caught in conflicts driven by interests far removed from the people who actually fight them? We need to talk about this, folks. And I'm going to be very specific about this today, okay? This is not our war. This is a war that was driven by the oligarchs, Trump and his friends. How many times have we been told that war is necessary, only to find years later it wasn't what we were told? From Iraq to war in Afghanistan, we have seen trillions spent, thousands of lives lost, and families forever changed. And for what? Shifting narratives, unfinished missions, and a generation still carrying the burden. So when you hear boots on the ground, don't hear policy. Hear footsteps, hear sacrifice. Hear the sound of a family being asked to give up everything for a cause they may never fully understand. Because sending troops should never be routine, folks. It should never be political and should never be someone else's war dressed up as our own. If we are going to ask for that kind of sacrifice, the least we can do be at least be honest about why, right? Okay, so that was my rant for this morning, and we will be going into it in detail with Ken Bentley, who has joined us. Ken, good morning. We'll be coming to you in about 10 minutes or so, okay? So we got Ken already joined us on the line, and Ken is all dressed up, I see, in his Marine uniform. But I want to take a quick break, and on the other side of the break, we'll come back with our person of the week, who will be introduced by Dr. Sheila White. His name is Professor Abid Saulat, and we'll take a quick break for a message from our buddy, and we should be seeing you in about 30, 40 seconds. We'll be right back.
Have no fear with regard to renewable energy. If you own property, either residential or commercial, in Northern Illinois, you most likely qualify for massive federal, state, and utility incentives. Grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down this number, 630-785-0031. You can have a no-cost, no-obligation conversation with a ComEd Greenlight expert that can help you figure out which incentives you qualify for. Again, call 630-785-0031 for a free, no-cost, no-obligation assessment. 630-785-0031.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Faheem.
Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Lightning Strike, and I'm going to throw it over to Dr. Sheila White to introduce our person of the week, and then we'll come back with Ken Bentley for our extended session today on the human cost of war. Dr. White, Professor Saulat is all yours.
Good morning, Lightning Strike. Good morning, Professor. Well, today our special guest, our person of the week, has done something very unique. He built a movement on a simple concept, but very powerful concept. $1 can change lives. After migrating to the U.S., in the mid-30s and in the early 90s, Abid went from earning his GED to building a remarkable professional journey, including every member as a member of a visiting professor at a senior project manager, at AT&T. Today, he leads a mission that has raised over $1 million in just 4 years and 5 months, with only 5 and 38% overhead, ensuring nearly every dollar that's raised goes directly to those in need. It's based in the Chicago area, and his work is a powerful example of how small, consistent giving can create extraordinary impact. So let's dive into this journey. Welcome Abid to the Lightning Strike this morning. Welcome.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you guys. It's a big honor. I believe that it's going to be recognized and will be a motivation for many people that how this works. So briefly, I'll just give you a brief, unique background I've got is that when I landed in the United States, I came here in my mid-30s, as you said. However, when I left my country, India, I just had finished my high school there. I landed here and with my wife and my 3 kids, and with a travel industry background of about 18 years. However, I had this passion of going back to school. So when I wanted to go back to school, they looked at my credentials and told me that I have not completed my high school here. So I had to start from scratch and did my GED And then I went back to, I was a DeVry student for 4.5 years, managing a family of five with working two jobs and then going to school and then coming out of that with a summa cum laude. And my goal was short term was to get my master's started within 6 months, and my long term goal was to come back and teach at DeVry. And I did that. So for 15 years, while working full time at AT&T, I was working. I got the job as soon as I graduated from DeVry in telecommunications management. I got a job at Maritech that turned into SBC, that turned into AT&T, and I worked there for about 23 years while working as a part-time professor, visiting professor at DeVry for about 15 years. However, in 2020, there was a big, massive reorganization happened, and that led to my being surplused. And at that point of time, I was about 2 years away from my retirement, and I thought to myself that I've worked enough, about 47 years of my career into the workforce. I said, I need to do something different and do something for the humanity. So started with a small effort of providing a very known personal families who were kind of very hard earned. They didn't have any means to support themselves. So I started providing them with groceries for a full month of groceries in India. And it was $40 that will feed them for 4 to 5 people for a month with the exchange rate. So, and then when I just kind of mentioned to my contacts, they really got intrigued and they said, hey, why don't we kind of join you? So I started that in 2020. But it started so much influx of people joining me that I had to become registered 501c3 non-profit organization with tax exempt, IRS approved, and got this foundation called Darul Infaq Foundation. So briefly, I'll tell you what Infaq means. Darul Infaq means house of charity. Infaq is an Arabic word mentioned in the Quran multiple times, and it is one of the favorite words of Allah in the Quran. And He likes that we spend from what we have been given to us on the people who really need it. So that is what the foundation talks about, to go and work with them and give them food so that they can be strong enough to go and earn their living. And in the Bible, it says, service to humanity is service to God. So that was my passion. And then that kind of, with my contacts, with my social contacts, it started kind of making me known. Okay, like we know somebody who we can trust, and they started coming in. So I had to, really kind of, I never thought that I was running a business. Honestly, I was a 9 to 5 person. I was a professor. I was just kind of want to do this and go home. But now my wife says that I had worked 2 jobs and gone to school. I gave her some time. But now with this thing, I'm 24/7 busy, and I have hardly enough time to talk to her. And recently, she wanted to tell me something, and she sat next to me for 2 hours, and I was on the phone. And when I was done, it was kind of getting late. I said, "Hey, you know what? I need to go back. I'll go up and sleep." And she said, "I have been waiting to talk to you for 2 hours." I said, "Okay, we'll go up and talk before we go to bed." So, it started, as you said, that with a small effort, dollar a day goes a long way. That's my slogan. Dollar a day goes a long way. And there's our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, peace be upon him, said, consistency is more than 1,000 miracles. So if you tell somebody to run 10 miles in a day, he will run. He will finish it. But if you tell him run 1 mile a day for 10 days, he will not do it. So that is the thing. So when I ask anybody $30 a month, it becomes easy for them. It's doable. And when they hear that this is providing to groceries for a full month of groceries for families, so they just join me, and it's just pouring in. And now we are supporting about 250 families over, Besides that, we are also doing, self-dependence, making them self-sufficient, education, medical treatments, helping out with so many different aspects. Whenever emergency relief happens, we are there. We contribute to every cause that is local in US as well as global. So
Yes.
that's the basic background.
Well, that's a mouthful right there. House of Charity, serving humanity. That's what we need, and that's the reason, Mohammed, why I'm so happy that we have guests like this on the lightning strike, because these are real people. We talk about boots on the ground. These are people that are out there helping serve humanity, and that's what it's going to take. Because even our administration is not getting this by cutting a lot of benefits. So I'm so grateful to you, Professor, to be on today to share the work that you're doing. You're making an impact. You're making a difference. And I want to turn it over to Mohammed at this point, because I know you've impacted his life in a lot of ways.
Okay.
He's spoken very well of you. Go ahead, Mohammed.
Well, we go way back, Sheila. We go back 3 generations. We've been family friends.
Mm.
Okay, and I'm so glad to see that he's doing what he's doing. And
Yes.
it's about, 20 minutes, 22 minutes past the hour, folks, and we'd like to come back with Ken. But hey, I helped to start that nonprofit. Don't forget that.
Yes, yes, yes. He was one of my mentors, or one of my counselor. I can say he helped me out, and I'm really thankful for
Okay.
you guys that you brought me in here and people could hear me what my mission
Yes.
is. So everybody who wants to join, you can join me on LinkedIn, and you can see what my work is, and my website darulinfaq.org.
Okay, can you
Thank you.
repeat that website also, please?
darulinfaq.org.
Okay, so it is
Yeah.
DARUL.
UINFAQ.
.org. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, folks. You are tuned in to the Lightning Strike. I'm your host, Mohammed Faheem. Our guest, our person for the week is Professor Abid Solis. Sheila, thank you so much for bringing him in. And folks, if you have any questions, feel free to call in. 773-763-9278 or WCPT is the number. We've got Mike Patino on the phone with us today. His laptop crashed. But let me bring in our next guest. And I'm very happy to have Ken Bentley joining us. Ken, can you unmute? Can we hear your voice?
Did I mute this thing?
No, sir. You're good. You're good, Ken.
Oh,
So come on in.
okay. Morning. How are you?
Come on in. Good morning. And so, folks, Ken Bentley is our guest today on our segment of the human cost of war. We constantly hear this thing about boots on the ground, boots on the ground, boots on the ground. Ken, first off, thank you so much for your service. And we really, really, really appreciate what you have done for us. So, Ken, I want to dive right into the human cost of war, okay? First off, let's hear a little bit about who you are. And can you give us a little bit of background of what you have done?
Well, I'm an old Marine, for that
Okay.
matter. But I served 9 years in the Marine Corps. My last tour of duty was in Desert Storm, Kuwait. Went through the oil fields, the whole 9 yards, into, well, allegedly Iraq. But served my country because it was the right thing to do. We always hear people always thank us for our service. And I talked to an old World War II veteran, and the one thing he taught me, which I thought was very eloquent, was, when we hear thank you, we don't know how to respond to that, because we're like, but we didn't do it for us. We don't do it for ourselves. And he goes, so what's your answer? And he goes, well, I thought long and hard. And he goes, well, my answer is I did it for you. And that's my response to a lot of people when I say that, is we do it for the citizens. Regardless of where we stand in politics or where we stand on the rules or personal philosophies, we still have a job to do. We signed a contract saying, hey, this is what we want to do. Tigger, you got to lay down. Sorry, my cat's in here, won't play.
Okay. So, Ken, when people hear the phrase boots on the ground, which is such a euphemism for sending, our kids into battle for a cause that they may not believe in, what do you think they don't understand about what that phrase really means?
The human cost. A lot of people misunderstand that, though we may not agree personally on a personal level what's going on, we have to follow orders. Just like, you go home to the missus and the missus goes, hey, I need you to do this, 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 and this. Well, what do? You do it. Why? Because you want to make her happy. Regardless, you still do it. You're like, we really don't want to do this, but we do it because we're told. We don't question it. We just say, fair enough. We're going to go do what we got to do. We're trained to do this. This is our job. A lot of people have a lot of issues with the military service, and we're not a bunch of brutes. We're human beings.
Mm-hmm.
We're put in situations where we have seconds to respond, just like the police department, just like a firefighter. We have the same things. There's the mental factor that goes on. I had to take a human life. How's that play in my head for years?
So, Ken, I have our regular team over here. We got Brandon, who's joined us from this week. Mike Patino is on the phone. His laptop crashed, so you don't see his face. And Reed Bible is actually sick, so he's not joining us today. But we got Chris Hilbert, who joins us from Texas, and Dr. Sheila White is on, so you can see. And I'll see if they have some questions for you. But can you describe the moment it became real clear for you that you were in a war zone?
As soon as I hit the ground. The day I landed in Kuwait, which happened to be Christmas Day of all the days of the world. Christmas Day, we landed in Kuwait, and they said, well, here we are. And it was 120 degrees in the shade. You're going to either move or go. And that was the prerequisite, because we weren't actually at war at that time. We were just filling the gaps, getting ready, because I was part of Desert Shield. So we were there in preparation for when the president says, okay, guys, we've done everything politically we can to resist this issue, and we're going to turn it over to you guys and have fun. Do what you got to do. Do your jobs.
Okay. So folks, we are talking with Ken Bentley, a Marine, who has experienced what boots on the ground really means. Not like our former, Fox News reporter, who is now the Secretary of Defense, but then he turned around and calls it the Department of War. Okay. I don't know about this guy. Okay. So let's not get into the politics of it, but if you have any questions, feel free to chime in. Okay. The number to call in is 773-763-9278. In the second hour, we'll be joined by Congresswoman Marie Newman with her segment, and then Maria Mazaffar, employment, not employment. Attorney Maria Mazaffar will be joining us with her segment of Breaking the Echo Chamber. But coming back to Ken, what stays with you the most after deployment?
Lost friends.
Oh boy. Yeah. Oh boy.
Lost companions that served their country well, didn't make it back. Those stay. The actions we have to do, and I hope, I implore to some of the people, when you meet a veteran, the last question you ever want to ask them is, did you ever kill anybody? Never ask that question. That's just not good, because it brings back all those haunted memories that we're trying to bury all the time, or keep in check, or put in a cage. And there's sneaking up on a veteran, that's a bad idea, because you don't know where their head's at, and next thing you know, they may not realize what's going on until it's too late, and they react, because our training is a little different than everybody else's.
And folks, never ever, I was telling my team
Reed Bible's on the phone.
Who Reed is on the phone? Wonderful. Thank you, Dylan. But I was talking with our team before we started the show today, Ken, that never ever call a Marine as a former Marine. He'll take your head off. Okay. Once a Marine, always a Marine, right?
We're very passionate about who we are and what we represented and what we chose to do, whether it's soldier or Navy or what have you. But Marines, we stick that moniker and we keep it forever.
Okay. So how did your experience change you as a person?
Jaded. Very jaded. I'm very mindful of every action of every person that's around me, their thought processes, their actions. I watch everything. I'm always on guard because you don't know. You're always in that mindset of here, and you don't care about what's out here. You want to you're here. So yeah, it's kept me quiet.
Coming back on that same thought, Ken, what does deployment do to a family emotionally? What was the impact on your family?
On pins and needles, not knowing when they're going to get that phone call that, hey, your son didn't make it, your daughter didn't make it, what have you. I've had a chance to at least talk to my dad at least once while I was over there. And his question was, so where were you at? I know you can't tell me where you're at now, but where have you been? And I'm like, well, your news feed's about 2 weeks delayed behind what we're actually doing. I said, the barracks that got hit by the Scud. He goes, yeah. I said, I was there the day before. He's like, oh, he's like, okay, fair enough. I won't ask anymore. So he understood I'm in the middle of it, and he didn't want to go any further with it. So he understood the rules, but yeah, it tore on him. He supported whatever I wanted, and he understood that I had a mission to do, and that was the way it worked.
So, what was the hardest part now about being away from your loved ones for you personally?
Having that support right next to you, not just being a phone call away, because I actually, even now, I live 45 minutes from my family. So, it's, you can't always just pick up a phone and go, hey, what's going on today, Dad? You okay? Have a conversation. It's like, no, I've got things to do, and my mind's over here focused on this idea, not them. So you have to take everything, put it in a box, put it over here in a corner, and leave it there, and know that, hey, I'll get to this when I can, but right now I got to focus here. So yeah, you got to learn how to segregate your system and box everything up, because you can't worry about what's there. You got to worry about where you're at.
So we got Reed Bible and Mike Patino on the phone with us. So Reed is a retired special supervisory agent for the Department of Homeland Security. He's an immigration attorney and a former Will County board member also. So let me bring Reed into the conversation. Reed, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody, especially to Mr. Bentley. So good to have him on today.
Morning.
And, good morning, sir. Our country owes such a debt of gratitude to people like you who have served this country, especially the Marines. They're usually the first in and the first out, and you're all so deserving of our utmost respect. And unfortunately, that seems like it doesn't seem to register with our current president. Besides you, Mr. Bentley, another great Marine passed away a couple of days ago by the name of Robert Mueller. I think you may have heard of him. And our president actually said about him when hearing of his death, they said, quote, good, I'm glad he's dead. Now, this is a man who served in Vietnam as a Marine. He won a Purple Heart. He got the Bronze Star while in Vietnam. And yet, because Trump didn't like his investigation, he decided that he's just going to denigrate this very honorable man. How does that, do you think, how does that land on the ears of people like yourself who've also served honorably our country, when a president can be so disrespectful of someone who served so honorably and went on to serve this country as the director of the FBI for many, many years during a time of another crisis, which was 9/11.
That's not cool. Don't get me wrong. I've never met Mr. Trump myself personally. I know he's a huge supporter of his troops. I will give him credit for that, because when his first 6 weeks in office, his first term, at least he had the intelligence to say our veterans deserve better care, and they should be able to go to doctors they want to go to without regardless of where VA says to go. So with that being said, you don't a gentleman who's gotten the Purple Heart, the Bronze Star, he's a hero. He went above and beyond all line of duty to sacrifice himself, and now it's a huge disrespect to the military community, period. I know a lot of Vietnam veterans, and I know present veterans that a friend of mine, he's got 3 Purple Hearts, could have had 5, but he just refused to turn them in because he's like, I got a job to do. I ain't got time to mess with this stuff. I'm not here for what's pinned on my chest. I'm here for a job. So Marines are definitely a different breed. We're very hardcore. We're very fast. We're very straightforward about stuff. You want to ask a question of a Marine, be prepared for an answer you don't want to hear, because we're going to be very honest and straightforward. And but yeah, I never heard that part, to be honest with you. I don't pay attention to the news anymore because it's just so degrading at most times. So I just
well, that was just yesterday, Ken, that our president made that statement, and he had a smirk on his face. And when he was at Dover, for the transfer ceremony. He was trying to merchandise his golf course with a hat on. But let's not get into the politics of it. I wanted to talk about, again, the human cost. So what was the transition like coming back home for you?
No support. Zero support. We don't have anybody they train you to go to war. They train you to do these things. They train you how to kill. They train you how to take care of your weapons, how to do your jobs. And then when you get out, they're like, hey, here's your paperwork. Here's a little bit of money. Have a nice day. And off you go. And you got to figure it out yourself. So yeah, we tend to, unfortunately, when I got out, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have all this stuff. We didn't know how to network. We didn't, unless we knew somebody that knew somebody. Now you get the internet, and guys are able to get more help today than they did when I got out. And in Vietnam, it was even worse because they got spit on when they came home. They got stuff thrown at them, so they were disrespected. So, and they were just there to do a job. They didn't ask to go. Most of them were forced to go. So,
and you know what, Ken? I mean, we were talking about it yesterday on the phone also. Folks, when these veterans, they come back after putting their life on the line for us so that we can have our freedoms over here. They go to Great Lakes Naval Base over here in the Chicagoland area for like about a couple of weeks for some training on how to get a job. Okay. Then they are thrown out like garbage. And when I was working with the Department of Employment Security at Illinois WorkNet, I put together some programs for returning veterans and to get them, productive employment in manufacturing. And it was so sad, Ken, to actually hear a Marine coming up to me and saying, "Thank you, sir, for your help. I had no idea what I was going to do. When I come back, I thought I was going to be a janitor." That broke my heart. And it is it is on record over here, Sheila, because when I did a workshop like that for returning Marines, Crane Chicago Business actually sent a reporter, and there is a video report on that. I think it's about 15, 16 years old now, but I can dig that out for you to see what the Marines were thinking about what happens to you when you come back. So do you feel supported by the system and by society, Ken? I mean, I think you already answered that. But what are some of the invisible changes or challenges that veterans face that people don't see?
The mental side of it. You never see the anguish with we go through, that what we saw, what we had to do. We had to do stuff at the spur of the moment, and taking a life is not a funny thing. It's never humorous. No, Hollywood likes to play it up like it's cool, and it's not. It is exact opposite. It has a cost, and mentally you're still there. I know a lot of guys in Vietnam that came back. They're still there. They never came home. They literally never came back to the U.S. They've been there forever, and even today. So I had a buddy of mine who was a Vietnam vet. Unfortunately, he passed away a long time ago. But he had a quiet room in his house. He built an entire room that was completely soundproof for the 2 weeks of 4th of July. He would pigeonhole himself down there, and he would stay there because he couldn't handle fireworks. It was just, he couldn't do it. That's how he dealt with it. He just went in there and he grabbed a bunch of beer and stocked up his fridge and stayed drunk for about 2 weeks and said, "I'll deal with it that way." And that's how he hid. So that's a lot of guys, and unfortunately, a lot of military, not just Marines alone, but a lot of military, they turn to that route. How to numb that, how to numb yourself. And that's
So,
what you
Ken,
got to do.
usually at this point, Reed and I have a session together, but feeling that now that Reed is not on the radio with us, but he's on the phone on the radio. So, do you mind continuing the conversation for a few more minutes, 15, 20 minutes, or do you have anywhere
No,
to go?
no.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So let me see if Dr. White has any questions for you. Sheila, do you have a question for Ken?
Yeah, I do. When you talk about the human cost of war and, military having seconds to respond, I don't think that civilians really understand the impact of what you all are under. What is the thing that you want the civilians, even in this present war that we're in right now with the Israeli war and US, what do you want civilians to understand? Because you guys go in there, you're obeying the commands. If Congress says yes or no, what's going on now, you're still going to do what you feel to do because it's your job, as you said. So what do you want civilians to understand on both sides of this thing? You have to do what you have to do according to your commander in chief, but at the same time, if everybody's not for this, you're kind of in the middle, but you have to do a job. So what do you want civilians to understand in this whole war that's happening right now?
Kind of the best way to relay it to civilians is when your dad came home and told you to go clean your room, what did you do? You went and cleaned your room. Whether you liked it or not, you did your job. You did what you were told to do. That's exactly what the military's like. It's just like your dad walking up going, I want you to go do this. I want this, 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 and this, and I want it done. And you don't question your dad. You don't question your mother. God forbid if you question your mom, because you know what happens then. The frying pan, the flippers come out, and the whole 9 yards. So you do what you're told. In the back of your head, you may have that discussion. You may have a discussion between your peers, but you never voice it above that route. You don't go above your chain of command, and you don't go up to your staff sergeant or CO going, hey, I'm not doing this. I don't like this. Oh, you'll be in the brig. You got to do what you got to do. And it's the mindset. You what they don't understand is once you go into the military, into boot camp, they break you down. They make you feel like you're nothing and make you form as a team. And the Marine Corps is this way. And I'm not sure about the Army or the Navy, so they're a little different in how they do things. But the Marine Corps, they break you down and make you understand that no matter who's in that group, you all pay the price for what somebody does wrong. So it's a joint effort. It's team. You have a team. So just like you're the nucleus of your family, you have children. Well, they rely on you to make the decisions. But if something was going wrong with you, what do? They form a circle around you, and they protect you. Same thing in the military. It's just like a big family. It's just different. You're just all different colors, creeds, and religions. What have you? We don't care. Nobody. In the military, the religion doesn't matter. Because the old rule is that you get into a foxhole and you're in war, you're praying to a god. They don't care which one you're praying to, but you will be praying to one of them. And
so Ken,
nobody says the Lord's word. Please. Sorry.
Did you ever question the mission or the purpose of the conflict while you were there?
Nope. Nope.
So
it wasn't my job.
Yeah. How important is it though for troops to understand why they are fighting?
Our question answer, because we're always told you don't question. You do. If you have an issue, you bring it up properly. You go through your chain of command. Son goes to dad goes to mom goes to grandma, and so on and so forth. That you want to look at chain of command that way through family.
Okay.
If we have an issue with an order, we feel it's not right. They say you have issues with this. 9 times out of 10, you don't have a choice. You just go. And your feelings and your personal opinions of what the conflict is, or whether it was Iraq or Afghanistan or the present
situation,
mess we're in, the present mess we're in. I haven't heard, and I'm not trying to correct anybody here. I have yet to hear the word "we're at war." All I've heard is we are at what we consider a police action. We're there to do a job, and they haven't declared war just yet. Now that's just what I've been hearing. I don't know for certain, but and I'm not trying to correct anybody by no means, so please don't think that as an insult. But yeah, the military is a different monster. You follow your orders, you follow your chain of command, and if you have issues, you bring it up properly, but you do it discreetly because there's always flack.
So is there any kind of mental health awareness available while you are there, Ken, or is it after you come back? But on the field, on the ground over there, do you have any mental health specialist that you could speak to if you feel overburdened?
When I was in, we did not. We didn't. We had access to our chaplain, what have you. There's always chaplain with with the group that you're with, where there's always a chaplain around of sorts. Whether they're whatever. Usually they're non-denominational. Technically, I mean not always, but generally they're non-denominational. They may be Catholic, but they say, "Hey, I listen to everybody, regardless of how you preach or pray." You can talk to them, but most of your military won't seek it out unless it's absolutely like it's just crushing them. So
let me see if Mike has any questions for you. Mike, are you still on with us?
Yes, I sure am. Good morning, Ken. Thanks so much for coming on the show. You really touched me when you talked about your friends dying in battle. And I was around for the Vietnam War. Luckily, I had a high draft number, so I didn't get to go over there. But I had quite a few good friends die over there in Vietnam. And I was totally against the war. And I just wondered if how you feel about, are you compelled at all to do anything to stop what's going on over there? Or is that a discussion that you're having with any of your veterans?
Believe it or not, a lot of us veterans are saying, they're actually, a lot of us are like, hey, why don't you just send us instead of ruin another life, instead of ruin another young person. I'm of the mindset in the same way. I would go today again if they took me back just to save a young man or a young woman, whichever, to have to go through it. I would do it in a heartbeat because I've already been there. I already know what to expect. And now I can't stop an action that's there. I mean, whether I believe in it or not, it's not my purpose. There's obviously things we're not told. There's always certain things in conversations that doesn't get to our level, as far as the public is concerned, because there may be some other underlying issues that are going on that they have to maintain some level of secrecy. Though we may think they're hiding something, there may be something going on in the background that we don't fully understand, and that changes the outlook of what's going on. Whether you support war or don't, I don't have a problem with people like that. If you don't support it, I get it. If you support it, I get it. It's a personal choice. For me, it is what it is. I mean, I'll be there for those young men and women, and they come back. I ride with the American Legion Riders here out of Plainfield, Illinois, and we do escorts for them to go to deployment or to their final resting place. And we get on our bikes, we go to the funeral, we go to where the body's retrieved. And I've been to Midway. My first mission was with a World War II veteran who was actually MIA for 80 years. He died in the first 30 days of World War II in France. Got lost in transaction. They finally brought him up and did DNA testing and found his family, which happened to be not more than 30 minutes from my house. So we went up there and retrieved the remains, escorted all the way to Wilmington, and then the school district, the funeral home, and the Patriot Guard on top of it all had given the school lesson plans about the war and what took place and what this gentleman did, what he sacrificed for. And when we went to get him at the funeral home after the services were done, we escorted the vehicle through the entire town, and every person and every child had a flag and their hand over their heart all the way through town.
Ken, this is one of the most gut-wrenching episodes of the Lightning Strikes that we have done. Right, Sheila?
Yes, it is. It's just so hard to fathom. It's still happening. War is still happening after all we've gone through, after all we've learned, thousands of lives lost. And I know in the military, when you're next to your buddies, they're going through anguish. How do you support them, even though you have to do what you're told? Can you support them and can you comfort them in the situation of, man, it's going to be okay? I mean, how does that affect you? How did you deal with that?
Focus. You focus on the moment. Don't focus on the bigger issues. You focus on the moment, because at the moment, this is what you need to. Eckhart Tolle wrote a book about being the now.
Yeah.
Unusual author, but I read his book and it's actually very good about stuff. But what it focuses on, and the basic message is, you focus on the very moment you're in. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about yesterday. Don't worry about what you're going to do in the next 20 minutes. You worry about what you're doing right now. And the best way to do it is you get your team, because I was a squad leader, and I grab my team and I go, look, this is what we got to do, guys. Let's get it here. Get your head in the game. Let's focus on what we're doing. Don't worry about what we're going to, what's chow going to be like. Hey, can we get a beer later? No, we ain't worried about that. We got to worry about getting everybody home. Don't care about the rest of it. Let's get through this and then go on to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. It's continuous. Yeah, you coach while you talk, and you're coaching yourself at the same time. You're talking yourself through the problem, so you're trying to relax yourself and show them, hey, I'm in control. So you have to maintain a higher level of presence for yourself to let them know, I'm not. We're all afraid. If you don't fear death, there's something really wrong with you. But
let's see if Chris has any questions for you. And Chris is joining us from Texas, Ulysses, Texas. What is the?
It's pronounced Euless.
Euless, Texas.
Euless, Texas. Or if you're local, it's sometimes called useless. But
Okay.
I've actually heard of that town, believe it or not.
Oh, well, that's pretty amazing, Ken.
Well, when I was in Texas, Chris, I lived in Baytown for a while. And right next to Baytown is a town called Pasadena, where most of the oil refineries are. And we used to call it Stinkadena.
I like that. I had not heard that one.
Okay.
Good one.
So from Useless in Texas, have you got any questions for Chris? This is such a wonderful, awesome conversation we're having this morning.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to kind of switch it a little bit in a slightly different direction, because I was raised military dependent. My dad was career Army, and so from 0 to 18, I was a dependent, and so my dad was deployed to Korea, Vietnam twice. He was in communications, so he was TDY a lot. And so what I was wondering is, do you have any advice for the wives and the children that could help them understand when their parent comes back or their spouse comes back? I remember my dad coming back one time, and we were so excited to see him, and he was so angry and just told us to leave him alone. And as you can tell, it's still kind of, even 60 years later, it's still a little bit heartbreaking to me, because I was like 7 at the time. But I've never had an opportunity to ask anybody. And my dad, you ask him stuff about his coming back from being deployed overseas to Vietnam or Korea, and he's like, I don't want to talk about it. It's over, So if you have any words of wisdom for us, even though we're now pushing 70, that it might help other people that are not pushing 70 as well. And so I was just curious about what you could do to help the dependents in any way, some sort of words of wisdom.
I would say, on a personal level, patience.
Patience. Okay.
Patience and patience, because you have to understand, we're put in a situation where we're on we don't have a life alert button. We don't have someone to come and, we don't have a button there. Hey, I've fallen, I can't get up type thing. It's
Right.
we're it. And we're under that stressor 24/7 for the entire duration we're there. And that stress takes its toll. And the things we see and had to do, we will never discuss. I've known Vietnam veterans who still to this very day will not discuss what they did, or Korea, or World War II, or any of the other occupations we were involved in.
Right.
They won't talk about it. And why? Because they don't want to revisit the problem. They won't revisit the memories. So the best thing I could say is be patient, be supportive as the best you can, and try to see if there's a way you can help them without pushing,
right,
so to speak. Kind of like a little nudge or a little hint, or don't do a surprise intervention, because it just might go south. No. There's ways to do things without pushing the envelope. Sometimes maybe it's just bringing an old friend of his by, or find some of their buddies and say, hey, let's do a big picnic and get the boys together and their families and see how they interact. Because you're going to notice all the family's going to be on one side of the yard, and those men are going to be on the other side of the yard, and they're going to just come together, and they're going to have their own conversations, and they're paying attention to everything that's going on around them, but they're focused on their buddies. And you want to see them light up a little bit. That's a great way to do things, because then it shows that you care enough to go, hey, I found all your buddies. I want to have a big picnic or what have you. But whether if they're religious, have the pastor come by once in a while and do a check, or have one of the guys from the VFW or the American Legion or what have you come by and do a buddy check. Hey, how you doing? Are you okay? Is there anything you want to talk about? It's just two guys, or what have you, or it's two women, because we have females that are
right,
there, that are the occupation zones, and they go through things too. It's not just the men. So we have to be mindful that not only the men are being inundated with this stuff, but you have a lot of the women that are there for support.
Right.
Sometimes they're not on the front lines, but they are a part of they are part of what's going on, and they deserve the same respect we do. It ain't all about the men. It's the ladies have a right to have the same support we do, and maybe sometimes more, because
we are we are coming up to the top of the hour, and we'll be taking a station break at 9 o'clock. But we can continue the conversation during the break. We are live on Facebook, and you're being heard all over the world right now as we speak, because we are also live on the internet on the WCPT Heartland Signal website. So a lot of people are listening to this conversation. I want to bring in Brendan, who has just joined us, and he is, in the age where if there is a draft like that calling about, Brendan, you might be getting up to the front lines, man, if there's a draft. So what do you think about what is happening, Brendan?
Thank you for asking my opinion. I really think one thing from just reading the news, and also from, I have a friend right now who's serving in the Navy, is I think we need to put a lot more weight on the human cost of certain things. And I think that's one thing that you've done a really good job of explaining, Mohammed. And I like the way that you explained it, and I think you explained it perfectly, is how boots on the ground, there's families attached to that, there's loved ones, there's friends, there's, you know, stuff isn't just numbers, stuff isn't just strategy. There's absolutely a human cost to it. And I think that's something that people who make decisions need to be aware of when making those decisions. And there's also the long-term impacts of conflicts on people who've served, as we've seen from past wars and past conflicts.
So thank you for that, Brendan. Ken, I want to ask you, every time and every year we have Memorial Day, right? And people don't really understand what it means. So what does honoring service truly mean
Mohammed Faheem
beyond words and ceremonies?
Sorry, your automated system cut into what you're saying.
Okay, so what does honoring service truly mean beyond words and ceremonies?
taking a moment to show respect for those who paid the ultimate price.
I know that in Plainfield, we do a good job of it. I've been to every memorial service in front of the village hall. And Sheila, you're talking about something that is happening in Crest Hill or Joliet with a memorial museum. What was that?
Yes, every year, the mayor of Crest Hill, they do they have all the soldiers come together from World War I, World War II, Korean, all of the wars. They gather together. They're in their uniforms, and they do a salute. They honor the families. They give flowers. It's a phenomenal ceremony that takes place on Memorial Day, and they do the gun salute. The guns go off and things, and it just brings you back to a place in time because all of these soldiers, they come out in their uniforms, and most of them are seniors, women and men, and they're able to share their stories of the mass destruction, the effects that it has on them now, the lives that they're living. Some of them have been injured, so they're in wheelchairs. It's so riveting just to hear and to see them and to still see their loyalty, not only to each other, but just to the country. And it's a beautiful thing to see. And they have, music, they have a band come out and things, and they go to the Abraham Lincoln cemetery, and they do a ceremony there. Then they come back to Crest Hill, and these are ceremonies that are performed all over, I know, on Memorial Day, but it's just something that I think civilians should see, recognize, and be able to participate in, because a lot of these families, like Chris said, they're still traumatized years later after that. And what surprises me most is that a lot of them still don't feel the support after 50 years, after 40 years, after 70 years. Some of them are almost 100 years old. We have people, and they still don't feel the support of the service that they gave, but they're honored to have served. And so for men and women all over the world, we salute you. And it's one of these things that I think, Mohammed, this is the most important show that we've had in 3 years, because it's very gut-wrenching. And you can still, from your story, Ken, just talking about it, it just rips us apart because we're still in the throes of mass cities being destroyed and lives being changed forever. And young people don't realize what they're going into. They go in with bright eyes and bushy tail, I'm going to serve my country, and they come out changed forever. And so I think hearing your story, sharing your story is something so important that we need to keep a pulse on what's happening and help people to realize that this is something that is going to change our lives forever, no matter how long it goes. Whether they say war or not, bombs are dropping, lives are being changed, cities are being disrupted. And it's something that we need to pay more attention to, I think. So thank you so much, Ken, for sharing and being truthful and transparent, because that's what we need to know about what's really happening and what has happened.
Yep, this has been again a gut-wrenching experience, and a conversation today, Ken. And thank you so much for joining us at short notice, also. And we will continue to highlight this thing and in the upcoming shows, as long as we want people to understand the human cost of war. Ken, before we go back live on the air, I've got a question. What do you want policymakers in Washington to understand before sending troops into conflict?
Well, unfortunately for me, because I'm a little biased about the opinion, Congress doesn't have to know everything.
Okay.
They're there to represent our interests,
right,
as civilians, not their personal agendas, not their personal attacks, not their attacks on the president or anybody else, to support and understand what's going on. And I would like to hear them at least acknowledge the fact that, hey, we need to address issues, but let's not make it in a personal attack. And what is this going to do for our constituents? What is this going to do for our people? How can we help our people understand what's really going on and not make a mockery of what's actually taking place? Because what they don't understand, and some folks don't understand, the chain of command. You're going to hear that a lot. You're going to hear, I heard it the other day. And a congresswoman, she just did not understand why she wasn't being told, you're not in the chain of command. Military is a different entity. It's a different monster. It's just like being a nurse. You have a chain of command as a nurse. You go to the doctor goes to the surgeon, so on and so on and so on. If you're a police officer, same thing. You're a fireman, same thing. You're a teacher, same thing. You have a chain of command. You don't walk around it. You walk through it. You don't jump the chain of command going, hey, I'm not going to talk to my supervisor. I'm going to go right to the manager and yank their chain for about 20 minutes. You have to understand the chain of command, and it doesn't always have to include you, what you believe. And sometimes it'll fall on deaf ears. As far as Memorial Day is concerned, just show some compassion.
So, Ken, we'll be coming back live on the air in about 30 seconds. Do you think the human cost is fully considered when these decisions are made to put boots on the ground?
Yep, 110%. They know exactly what they're going to achieve. They know a rough estimate of what casualties are going to look like, whether they're casualties of war, as they're termed as. It's unfortunate that you have those that are innocents that are caught up in the action, that because we don't always have the best intelligence. We may not have it all. We may not know that there's a family living in the basement of that building we're about to go into, until we get there. And all of a sudden, why didn't anybody tell us that? Well, oops, sorry. Oops,
Okay.
Don't cut it,
Well, folks, we are talking with Ken Bentley, and we are talking about the human cost of war. Ken is a Marine who has served our country for 9 years in different conflicts overseas. And this has been one of the most, I would say, gut-wrenching conversations that we have ever had on the Lightning Strike, like Dr. White was saying, in 3 years that we have been on the air. And thank you so much, Ken. Thank you very much for, again, not just your service, but for joining us and sharing what you have shared with us today. This has been phenomenal, and we will definitely want more people to know about what is happening in the coming weeks. We will be continuing these conversations. And final question before I let you go, Ken. Looking back, what do you believe is the true cost of war is?
Always going to be a human life, no matter what. It's going to be, whether it's mental or it's all. As the old phrase for Vietnam: some gave all, and all gave some gave all. And it's the truth, because everybody gives something. You go into war, you go into military, even in Cold War, you still gave something. You still changed you, because you didn't know if you were going or not. But once you go, yeah, you gave something. It changes you tremendously. It changes your attitude. It changes your personality. It changes. Even my dad noticed it. I came home and was doing some stuff around the house, and he finally goes, "Son, can I tell you something?" I go, "First off, are you okay? Let's ask that question." Well, I'm fine. He goes, "You're actually nuts." I'm like, "Oh, well, yeah, that's kind of part of the game, Dad. You just don't worry about yourself. You do what you got to do." And I did EMT work for a while, and those guys are like, "How do you do it?" And I'm like, "Because it's not about me. It's about somebody else." And we always worry about those guys, or the young ladies that are there, maybe they're in support for our missions. We worry about them. We worry about you at home. We want to make sure that when we come back, we've done our jobs. Excuse me, we've done our jobs. So yeah, we worry about everything, but we put it in boxes and address it when we need to. But yeah, we always worry. We just do it differently. We just have a different mindset than how we do things. As a father, you look at your children when they get hurt. You put on the good face, to show that, hey, it's not that bad. Mom's over there freaking in the corner, but you're standing there all stoic. Well, sometimes you have to be that way. Sometimes it's the opposite. Mom's all stoic and, oh, it's okay. Here, let me do this to your, mom spit cleans everything, and, a good kiss on the boo-boo and it solves all your problems. Same thing, it's the same mindset. It's just a different way of doing it, but you're doing the same things we do. We just do it at a different level of height, of awareness. So,
well, let me bring in Congresswoman Marie Newman and Maria Mazaffar, our legislative attorney, into the conversation. And we will continue the rest of the program in about 2 minutes. Marie, and Maria, it has been a gut-wrenching conversation with Ken today. I don't know if you guys were able to listen in on the radio before you joined us. It is, again, the human cost of war. That's what I wanted to focus on. And Ken really put it in perspective for us. And have you got any questions for Ken before we let him go, Marie?
Ken, so touching to hear how your dad responded to, "Are you okay?" Meaning that you're used to taking care of everybody else, but are you okay? Did you do anything specifically in that moment? Did you have like a really like lightning bulb moment where you're like, "Oh gosh, this specific thing is really bad"?
No, to me, it was normal behavior. My mindset as far as military is concerned, we don't focus on what we just did. We focus on what we just accomplished.
Yeah.
And do we get it done? No matter what we did. Oh, wait, I lost a hand. Okay, well, did it get done? Did I save his life? Did I do this or do that? We don't focus on us. We focus on, did we accomplish the mission? And my dad was like that. He's like, you're just crazy. I'm like, well, yeah, there's that part of it. That's life.
That's not crazy, and we do appreciate you. And I'll just point out and close and give it back to Mohammed in a second, but I'll just draw the parallel there is that men like you and literally millions of you have done the same for our country, and our leaders are not understanding or discerning that, and then most Americans don't understand or discern it as well. So thank you for drawing that line.
Well, we have Steve from the Gold Coast calling in, and let's see what Steve has a comment on the conflict that's going on. Steve, good morning. You're on the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Faheem and our team. Let's see if we can get to hear Steve. Dylan, if you could please connect Steve with the conversation. Okay, while we are waiting for Steve to join us, let's bring Maria in. Maria, you have any questions for Ken before we let him go?
Yes, first of all, thank you, Ken, for your service. I wanted to ask you, I don't know if you touched upon this, if there's been any backlash among the military community as you talk about the human cost of war and educating Americans.
Define backlash, if you don't mind, please. It's kind of a hard question to answer. A little more definition.
Yeah, I've seen so many soldiers that come back from war, and they actually take the mic and they talk about the human cost of war. And they also talk about what they saw and wish they didn't see, and some of the things that they had to do, wish they didn't have to do. For example, what you described about having kids or a family in the basement, right? Being part of the process, and you didn't foresee that. And sometimes these people get backlash of, you're being somebody that is being unpatriotic. And so I want to know if there's any friction there and how you've resolved in discussing those issues with that backdrop.
Hello?
Steve's there. Can we answer her question first, Steve?
Yes, let's get Maria's question, and then we'll bring Steve from the Gold Coast on. And we're almost running out of time on this segment. So go ahead, Ken.
So it's kind of a big question. And there's a lot of, it's like a cake. It's a lot of layers to dissect, because we see a lot of different avenues of what's going on in life. And we're taught one thing: you pick a problem and you solve that one first. So it's kind of hard for the young men and women who are serving our country or may want to wish to, or in some cases, maybe in Brendan's factor, that he may be part of a draft. God forbid if it happens. I don't wish it upon him. There are a lot of things we saw correct. And in this day and age, we have more facilities and more abilities to take care of that. When I was in, and a lot of my buddies were in, and some of the guys in Vietnam or World War II, what have you, they didn't have that feature. Today we do. And the best way we can do it is try to teach them how to handle the situation. Just like you may have not seen it, but you hear about it. But when you're there in reality, it is a different reality. It's a different painting. Hollywood likes to dress everything pretty and cool and all these effects. It ain't that way. It's far worse than that. There's more. There's the smells. There's the taste, not just the visual effects. It's everything. And you're in it. And it's like a young lady who gave birth. She's in it. She's the feelings, the overwhelming emotions, and the father just standing there going, "Cool, got a kid." Hey, look at this. To me, that was beautiful. Can I watch my daughters get born? And I had an anesthesiologist standing there going, "Yeah, this guy's going to pass on." I'm like, "No one's sitting the floor here but you. If you come near me, this is a thing of beauty. I've seen war. I've seen people with their innards hanging out, the whole 9 yards. I get it, but you don't focus on what you saw until afterwards, and it could be years. You boxed it up, so as a young lady, something happens to you, or a human being, period, not just a woman. You go through something traumatic. What do? You black it out. You totally forget it. Your brain will override and throw it away automatically because it's a traumatic issue, and your brain will automatically just kind of like black over it until years later, and all of a sudden a smell, a taste, a phrase, a sound, and you're right there. That flashback is right in the forefront of your head. Maybe you were in a car accident and it was somewhat traumatic to you. It was a fender bender, nothing serious. Nobody was really hurt, but to you it was traumatic because it was all of a sudden. What do? Well, first you're in shock, but after a while you're in fear. And then all of a sudden your body goes, you know what? I got to get going. I got to move.
Right.
Can't stay stuck. So I hope it kind of answers your question. I know the question is very diverse because there's a lot of angles to take with it. Not to say it's
Ken,
not.
I would like to bring you back for another session down in the next upcoming weeks. But let's take Steve's question, and then we will go on with the rest of the program for today. Steve, you're on the air with the lightning strike. Have you got a comment?
Yes, I wanted to make a few points, and I would agree. I think that we get a sanitized view of war. We're going to go to war. We send men and women into war, and then when the war is done, that's it. Everything is over. The reality is that in a modern society, we try to inculcate into young people the notion that violence isn't the answer, and that's the way we socialize them. But in order to have an effective military, once you join the military, you have to unteach that. You have to teach people how to be violent and how to be willing to kill. And then all of a sudden, if they survive, they come back to civilization. Many of them are traumatized physically and mentally, emotionally, and so forth, but they still carry that with them. And so when we talk about going to war, especially about putting boots on the ground somewhere, it's a exponentially more costly thing than simply what, again, as pop culture depicts it in movies and television and so forth, where you go to war and the person comes home and they just resume their life, they go back to work, and everything is hunky-dory. Well, that's not the way it works. It costs huge amounts of resources in order to keep those people functioning in society. And there's a reason why so many people who are veterans commit suicide or they go on to hurt other people, because you can't just simply sweep away that kind of trauma. So before we simply jump into another conflict, and Americans, to our credit, given the popularity of this last incursion relative to Iran, we are not in a position to say we want to go to war, certainly not boots on the ground. We are still trying to recover from what happened in Iraq, from what happened in Syria, from what happened in Afghanistan. Americans do not have a taste for that, but yet we have an administration that threatens to plunge us into another such conflict.
Well, Steve, thank you so much. I don't know if you've been listening to the entire conversation with Ken today. It's been gut-wrenching to really hear it from a person who's been there, done that, and like Ken was saying, has smelled and tasted what boots on the ground really mean. Ken, again, thank you so much for joining us, and we will definitely come back to you for more conversations later on in the month. And Appreciate your service. I know it sounds so empty when I say thank you for your service. Now we know what that service really meant for you on a personal level.
It's never empty when you pray, when you say thank you. It's never empty. We get it. We just don't know how to respond. It's not that we don't care. It's just we're like, but we didn't do it for us. We did it for you, and hopefully that impacted it. You walk away from any of this, you walk away going, there are people that are willing to die for my cause, for my beliefs, my religion, or political alignment, or whatever it is that you have, and understand that these men and women that go there and do this have no problem with it. They voluntarily walk in the door going, I know what I'm about to do, and I'm signing a blank check with my life on the line to support that.
Well, thank you, Ken, and let's continue the conversation with Marie. Marie, good morning. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for letting us, get a little bit into your segment of the conversation. But this was a very important conversation with Ken.
Really important conversation, and I'm very glad that you went a little bit longer because I really wanted to hear from him. So we appreciate our guest today tremendously, and Mohammed, thank you for coordinating that. When you hear it in the most real of terms, because none of us can imagine if you don't have that lived experience. So offering that lived experience is really critical for our listeners and everybody. But really hard to make a hard turn here, but I guess we have to. So
yes.
With that, we'll turn to Ignore at Your Risk. Good morning, everyone. I do think that it's interesting, the correlation between our most recent elections in Illinois, our primary elections, and war, right? Is that oftentimes in the Democratic Party, we believe vote blue no matter who can win. And when I select candidates and support candidates, it is seldom because I think that 100% they're going to win. It is because their values aligned, and I think that they can get real work done and have strong character. So with that, money doesn't always win, folks. So we're going to talk about money first. The amount of money in this primary election, whoo, man, holy cats. It was historical in many ways, but let's just do a quick run through of the top spending candidates. So Raja Krishnamoorthi takes the cake running for Illinois Senate. He came in second. He spent upwards of $25 million just on his part of the campaign. So remember, guys, campaigns are largely built on the candidate's ability to actually raise the money and spend it. In this case, on the campaign side, Raja Krishnamoorthi spent somewhere around $25 million. On the outside spending, that's a little bit more. And we're going to talk about the super PACs that came in to help Raja. But in Illinois 9, and the second top spender in all of Illinois was a newcomer to Illinois. Kat Abagzala ran in Illinois House 9. She raised over $3 million and spent a little over $3 million. Juliana Stratton was spent on by outside super PACs, enormously, but she spent about $2.8 million. Robin Kelly did everything on her own. She raised and spent about $2.6 million. Jason Friedman in Illinois 7 raised and spent $2.2 million, and the list glorifying over $2 million, but was spent heavily on the outside. So you can see there's a trend here, right? Is that in this situation, two of the top 5 biggest spenders, Laura Fine, spent $2 million. She lost and came in third. Raja Krishnamoorthi spent a lot of money and still came in second. It is not always the case that the person that spends the most money is the one that wins, but there was a lot of money spent. So let's look at the impact on the outside of those super PACs that came in and helped some of our races, and it was a lot. So overall, the impact of dark money and super PACs was right around 50 million, a little bit more than that. They're still tallying. What did the individual group spend? So let's start with the AI PAC, the artificial intelligence PAC called Think Big, spent about 1.4 on Jesse Jackson Jr., who lost to Donna Miller, who was spent on heavily by APAC. We'll get to that in a minute. Think Big, the AI PAC, also spent big, 1.1 million on Melissa Bean. She did win, interestingly enough. Moving over to APAC, I think it's funny, probably 3 or 4 years ago, if you had said the word APAC, people would be like, what is that? Now, interestingly, rank and file Americans across the nation, and this is their own doing, so I'm not saying anything that we all don't know, is that when you say APAC to a voter, they immediately know toxic, bad, interfering, right? So the far-right pro-Israel PAC, known as APAC, spent a little better than 20 million. It looks like it's coming out at 22 million in the Chicago area with a bunch of sub PACs. Some of them were called Chicago Progressive Project or Chicago Progressive Partnership, Elect Democratic Women, United Democracy Project, Affordable Chicago, all in Illinois. But here's a quick rundown. So in the Affordable Chicago Now PAC spent 4.4 supporting Miller. She won in Illinois too. The Chicago Progressive Partner spent about 300 grand in opposition to Kat Abexella in the 9th. They were supporting Fine. It's a little bit tricky here. So they were supporting Laura Fine, but went against Abexella, and they still lost. Laura lost. So Elect Democratic Women in Action Fund spent about 500K supporting Fine as well. Now, interestingly, another APAC group, Elect Chicago Women, spent almost 6 million on Laura Fine and still lost in Illinois 9. So rounding out the bend here in the Illinois 7th race, APAC lost big. They spent over 5 million in support of Melissa Conyers Irvin, and they also spent against Jason Friedman. But ultimately, LaShawn Ford, who didn't raise very much money, won in Illinois 7 because he was very attached to the community. So whether you supported him or not, he was ingrained in the community, and even over $6 million in spending didn't take him down. So money does not always win, and super PACs don't always win. In fact, it looks like it's about a 50-50 split. Finally, Fair Shake, the crypto PAC, spent about 10 million in opposition to Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton in the Senate race. And then JB's PAC spent about, it looks like combined with the DLGA PAC, which is the Lieutenant Governor's PAC, they spent somewhere around 6 or 7 million. And another 4 or 5 million from her leadership PAC. So all total, in addition to Juliana's 3 million she spent herself, another 15 million was spent on her by outside groups. So still not as much as Raja spent, but a lot. So what does this tell us? Really rough and bloody. I have to tell you, and we'll talk about influencers in a minute. I have never seen in all of my years the amount of online chatter that was inaccurate on all of these candidates I supported and candidates I didn't support. It really is prolific, and it's life-changing. People have to remember that you may not like a politician, but they are a human. So this is a good segue into unity. So here's the bad news for people that want to hang on to their hate. We have to come together. We absolutely do. I know it's really fun and yummy to hang on to that anger, but you got to let go of it. The primary was filled with lies, some truths, some manipulations, really hard to know what to believe. But what I do know, and I can say this with confidence because I'm Irish, so when you're Irish, you hang on to things a little bit and you like a good grudge, but you do have to move on. You do.
Okay.
And we have to. So the stakes are too big. Voters have to move on. Candidates have to move on. Everybody has to move on. But and then I finally want to make a quick note about paid influencers, because this is a warning shot. We are doing politics very differently at the campaign level. Not only are super PACs coming in bigger, but campaigns are paying social media influencers to do their work. And you have to be really careful, folks, because some of these paid influencers are well-intended and well-researched and understand the issues and the candidates. Many do not. So don't take someone's word for something. Do a little research. If a lifestyle influencer comes in that typically does jumping jacks in front of you and talks about tracksuits, don't take their word on foreign policy. Like, it's not a good idea, right? And so be careful out there. But it is our new frontier. Do your research. By the way, if anybody wants to learn more about paid influencers, unity, or the power of money in our Illinois elections, you can go to my Substack at Marie Newman Studio on Substack.com. And we'll see what happens next. But we do all have to come together. I do know that.
Well, Marie, I agree with you about the paid influencers and the jumping jack and jumping jack's comment. And that is something that I had, especially in the 9th district, is when you have someone come in, from Texas and bring in that much money to disrupt a race that was local and with no local roots in the district. No matter which ethnicity you belong to, that was not the right candidate for me, and that was why I supported Bushra Amiwala. That was the only person that I personally endorsed in any of the races, apart from Dan Jungles for our Will County Sheriff, and Brendan worked with Dan. He was his social media manager, so Brendan is joining our team from this Sunday on. And it's good to have Brendan as part of the team. And here in Will County, Marie, for the sheriff's race, we had a person who literally was, was a Republican for a long time, right, Brendan? Let's get Brendan's take on that.
I know I had like brief conversations about that, but I know. What I do know is I know Dan is a committed Democrat. Dan's been going to Democratic events in Will County. I want to say I was first introduced to Dan by the current Democratic sheriff back at the end of 2023. And his opponent, who's now the nominee, I don't believe was in the political scene really at all until early 2025.
Yeah, I never saw him in any of the Will County Democratic township meetings that we have a monthly, township Democrats meeting. I don't believe that I've seen him in any of those meetings. But Marie, how do we square this circle now when we have a lifetime Democrat who was endorsed by the Democratic Party and every leader that you could think of in Will County, in our case? He did not win. And now he is going against a Republican in the general. I think he's going against Riley is the name of the other candidate. Mm-hmm. I am honestly, I'm so, how do I even say it? I'm just going to vote for Riley because this guy does not deserve to be the sheriff of Will County. That's how much, my mindset is at this point. How do we square that when someone comes in who was a Republican to start with? Even in the 9th district, all of Kat's family are Republicans. Let's not forget that, okay? And she flipped over recently and became a Democrat. How do we square that, Marie?
That's a bunch of questions in one. The best way I can say that is that watch what candidates do before they actually run. And it's whether they are, and it doesn't even have to be supporting, but are you doing your civic duty? Are you voting and are you volunteering on campaigns and are you bringing the community together? Are you organizing? Are you supporting nonprofit and NGOs? Like, what are you doing before? Like, that's the important. So it was the first question I was asked when I was thinking about becoming a candidate. And I have a strong statement about exploratory campaigns are very important. But before that, I said, what campaigns? I worked on Gore, I worked on Obama, and I was in legislative advocacy for gun reform. So I had done a lot as a volunteer for decades, right? Running up to becoming a candidate. Like, what are you really doing? Because if you're talking online, which is part of an overall, if you're an advocate or an activist, many of us, I'm an activist, right? I talk online a lot, right? I share my Substack. I am on all the platforms, all the things, but it's because I've been in policy now for decades, right? I mean, it is a natural thing. For someone to come in and just have done one of those things before, and then they don't run an exploratory campaign to get to know the community, I want to impart this on all candidates and all people that research candidates. Make sure they've done an exploratory campaign, because if they haven't gone in and met with community leaders and started to have meet and greets across their district, they don't really know the district, because you can live there for 15 or 20 years and not even really know the district until you sit in people's family rooms and watch them tell you heartfelt things and things that are uncomfortable to hear. You don't really understand the district. So anybody that's going to run, do an exploratory campaign and do like 50 meet and greets before you decide to run, because you know what, you might have a different decision on the other side. So regardless if you're Republican, Independent, or Democrat, show the world that you have done the work before you decide to run. Don't just jump in and decide, okay, I'm a Democrat now, I'm a Republican now, I'm an Independent. Do the work.
That is so true, Marie. That's been my attitude also. That get something before you decide to run. I mean, just don't raise a ton of money. And by the way, I mean, if you're raising, $1 million, $2 million, that is the community's wealth that you are spending on your ego. I'm so sorry for that. Okay, but that is the truth. And with that, let's get to Maria Mazaffar. Maria, good morning. Thank you so much for the excellent, wonderful party last night to celebrate Eid. I'm sorry I could not stay longer, but it was phenomenal. The food was great, the company was awesome, and the hosts were just out of this world, Maria.
Well, the company was great. Yes, thank you so much, Mohammed. The company was great, so I'm glad you attended. So, I want to share my thoughts about this, the vetting of a candidate as a constituent. And I think for me, what really stood out in Illinois 9 is that for those that are civically engaging and encouraging others to civically engage, like Marie is, what we encourage is go to town halls, ask questions, look at people's profiles, look at their resumes, look at their contributions, and then see if it aligns with you and the potential of this candidate. Because this candidate will eventually have to actually enact policy while they're in Congress. And that also takes a certain type of resume and credibility and platform to be able to execute. You can go to Congress and get absolutely nothing passed, as Marie knows very well. It's not that easy. Marie's been successful. So I think the reality is we are encouraging all the civic engagement. And what has happened, as Marie has stated, is the role of influencers and social media has made such an impact that social media and the role of influencers actually dictate what you see in polls. Mm-hmm. And what I was watching as an observer is that the polls can identify name recognition based on a great social media campaign. But that social media campaign does not build a resume. It does not create a resume all of a sudden because people know you have policy experience. So the polls can show that you have name credibility, but there's still gaps in your experience. And so what happens when there are contentious elections is people are caught in a point of desperation. And this, I think, did occur in Illinois 9, because what we saw was that the polls were very high, leading for Abu Ghazala, and her positions were aligned with a lot of people in the community. But there was another candidate, such as Amiwala, whose social media game was not at the same level. Let's be very honest about that. It was not at the same level. But her resume and her platform was very, very good. Her credibility was very good within the community. And so for the voter that wants to encourage civic engagement, my thought was, how can we ask people to be civically engaged and tell them what's important in a candidate and then say, let's scrap all of that because the name recognition is really high right now. Because what happens then is that it is not foreseeing what's going to happen when this person goes to Congress. And I think both of them in Illinois 9 had great views and positions. But unfortunately, we'll never know because we focus so much on name recognition and not on the policy experience. And so that's what's very, very troubling. And I think, there's a lot of lessons learned in this. And Marie touched on this a little bit, is when you come in, and you want to come into a new district, how many leaders have you spoken to? How many community members have you spoken to? Because that is a good vetting process. People were very, very surprised of the result in Illinois 9 that some people did not move towards CAT. And I think it was a manifestation of those voters that said, no, we are in this position because there was no community outreach. So we don't know where this person actually stands because the campaign was not willing to come and talk to the district and the district leaders. How will we know that they will represent the district in all aspects when they're in Congress? You know, it's like, don't talk. You haven't spoken to the people at home yet. So how do we know how you're going to be? And I think people understood that. And so I think it was and I think it was unfortunate for Kat as well, and it was unfortunate for Busher as well. But it was unfortunate for Kat as well because you had this young, intelligent, articulate person come into this district, and I'm not taking agency away from her, but put in this position where you're coming to this district and you're not from the district, and you have high name credibility, and you have to just kind of bypass that resume, policy, platform question. You just bypass it. Well, the results show that you can't bypass it. You can't bypass it. And I think that is a lesson learned. I think the other lesson that we learned that Marie is talking about is there's a very positive light here about the fact that you can have a lot of money and not win, because money does not replace strategy. And money does not replace long-term smart PR. And so I think social media has done an incredible job in this regard, is that it's opened that echo chamber in the sense that just because you throw money, people aren't going to fall in line. People are getting smarter. People are getting information from individual media, independent media like this show, and they're starting to learn on their own. And they're also understanding, because we don't have the traditional media that's sitting in those spaces where a lot of information is coming out, people are actually taking it in and analyzing it, and they're not seeing the checks fall in. So for that person, they're like, yeah, this person has a lot because in the past, Maria, and I think you'd agree with me, when you have a lot of money spent on you, sometimes these groups think like the candidates are going to look so amazing that people are willing to spend so much money on you. They're this beloved character and so powerful that people are spending so much money on you. And now it's the opposite.
Yeah.
So it's like fantastic. It's fantastic that echo chamber is breaking open, that money does not replace strategy, and too much money may actually be a liability. And I think it's also interesting what the 3 PACs were. And this is something that we can connect the dots on. AI, crypto, and APAC. And there have been reports of how technology, surveillance, AI has been used in causing destruction in Gaza, right? Mm-hmm. So we can connect those dots. How is technology being used, and why is APAC and technology both as an entity spending lots of money? And then crypto is also very interesting because whose pockets are being lined with comfort. So I think money and tech, we're seeing money and tech come together. We saw a lot of these individuals on social media, because they were able to show this on social media, where individuals would come and go on these big, like the global summits or the national summits of tech companies that they have every year annually. And you'll see the CEO making a speech, and you'll see individuals coming in from the staff of the company, speaking to the CEO, saying, you're using your tech to destroy lives. You're using your tech to kill civilians. And they have this like protest against the CEO. And, if you don't know much, you're like, oh, here's a disgruntled employee. But now if you see the money, why is tech and APAC putting the same amount of money towards a candidate? And that candidate that they're putting the money towards have a position on these issues that align. So we're seeing now, what is the tech now being used for? And that goes into the amazing conversation that Ken brought to our show, which is, has tech and the amount of money we're putting behind tech and what it's being used for, as demonstrated in political candidates, is the tech now eroding the humanity and the human cost associated with war, and destruction and offensive strikes. And I think tech has allowed for us to kind of move away from what that human loss is. But at the end of the day, we saw the bombing of that school, which we talked about earlier, with the 180 school girls. If you had a human being go in and walk into that school and shoot every single one of those girls in the middle of Ramadan, right, and send them to their graves, would it not look so different versus a tech company being able to identify with error, identify a facility where they can take it out? It's totally different. So is it easier for us to take the pain and take the casualty of human loss when we know that it was a tech error versus a human error? And I think what we have to understand that there are humans behind these tech companies. There are humans behind the decisions that are giving these tech dollars to political candidates for a specific reason. And there's a human behind the strategy of how they're using the tech to cause the destruction of loss of life. I'd like to also say that Ken, I think, expanded on it, but I know we have a short program and we have a short show. But one thing I did want to say is that there's backlash from community members when individuals from the military talk about human loss and they talk about the horrors that they faced. And they talk about also how they've been treated when they come back, but also the decisions that they had to make that they didn't know that they were making, such as killing young civilians and all of these little children. And it is a question we cannot just respond with, it's the cost of war. War is messy. War is tough. But we are supposed to be in a time in our life in society where we have international law and tech to be able to minimize civilian loss, right? So I think there are guidelines for international law for a reason. And it's because we actually understand that humanity can be protected even in terms of war. So I really applaud individuals, soldiers that come back and share their stories, because they're not any less patriotic, but they're saying, look, this is actually what we were doing. I didn't know I was going to do this. And I remember I saw a really beautiful footage that's archived from a young man. I don't know if you've seen it, from a young man in Vietnam. And he was probably 20. And the journalist says, what would you want to send the message? What message would you want to send back home? And he said, don't send your sons to fight the wars. No, don't send your sons to finish the wars that your politicians started.
That's right. That's a great and
so powerful. And I want to end with that, because look, AI is not going anywhere. Tech is advancing. We are not anti-technology, but what we need to understand is that AI tech can be used to minimize error, uplift humanity, encourage people to tell the truth, get out of their digital echo chambers, or it can be used to buy candidates and erode our humanity when we're causing destruction of civilian life that is unnecessary in the name of our nation and our freedoms. And I think a lot of Americans are way too smart to fall for that anymore.
Well, Maria, thank you so much. I mean, you bring up some excellent points, and then we have leadership in place in Washington, where our president started off claiming that the strike on that school with those little girls in there was actually done by Iran. I mean, he had the gall, Marie, to say that in a statement that, oh no, it was not our bomb. And it's like, hey, hang on a second. How many countries have Tomahawk missiles? Okay, not too many. Oh no, some countries buy it from us and they may have used it. I mean, this is beyond ridiculous.
You're aware that our own military came back. The Joint Chiefs Staff had a statement out on this, that in fact they admitted, yes, that was us, because there are still moral human beings in our military, unlike in the White House and in this cabinet. So when Hegseth and Trump decided to lie about this, they were it was obviated by their own generals, right? So, and we need more of that. I am hoping for the day soon when generals start to say these are war crimes and we need to stop this. I am seeing Trump signal this week that, in fact, he wants to wind this thing down because he's looking for ways out. He's looking for a package, an anti-nuclear package. He's looking for this ridiculous threat he made. I'm sure you talked about it earlier in the show where he said, in 48 hours, we're going to bomb all of your power plants if you don't open the Straits of Hormuz. What he doesn't understand at all is that A, there are mines now that are laid in the strait. So in fact, anything can be blown up at any time. And then B, just because we bring Iran to this peace table doesn't mean that they won't continue to fight. In fact, very likely they will. And if anyone is naive to think that there aren't other ways they can get at us, like creating the Iranians look, we've killed thousands of their people now for 100 years, I mean, on and on. So they're angry. Are they going to come on our soil and do something? Maybe. Like we have to be honest about that, right? Because they're rightfully mad. We've ruined land, people, families, their structure, all of the things, right? So it doesn't matter if they're a good regime or a bad regime, and they are a very bad regime. We hurt their people many times over again over many decades. So like the thing, if Trump thinks that that Iran is going to stop fighting just because he creates a treaty or a package like JCPOA, by the way, the one he's offering is what Obama's package was. Like, so it's so stupid that he ripped that up and he's just doing it again. Like, oh my God.
Marie, let's also not forget, and especially for our listeners out there, in the Chicagoland area and throughout the world, that in that part of the world, no matter good or bad, Iran is a democracy. Okay. The rest of those other kingdoms over there, the so-called kingdoms, they are not democracies. Okay. Yeah. So just to equate Iran as the bad guy and all the others are good people over there, that is a fallacy. Okay. So good or bad, Iran is a democracy, and we have no right to go in and change the regime of another country. And because we want to bring in a democracy and replace it with a king again, okay? The king's son or whoever, the guy is from Raza Pahlavi or
more
whatever,
hardline.
right?
This guy's even more hardline than the first guy, so it's all ridiculous. And of course, Trump didn't do any research, and his buffoons in the White House didn't do any research. They didn't war game this out before they actually did this thing. So all of it, they're reaping the rewards of their stupidity and their inhumanity.
Yep. And
well, I wanted to add one more thing, Mohammed, is that there's also a big narrative that the women in Iran are oppressed. And so there's a lot of women, for education purposes that were sharing that the women are highly educated and they are in the top positions in universities, in tech, STEM, medicine, engineering. They have a whole athletic convention dedicated to female athletes where they're at the top of their game. So women take great issue with being mischaracterized with that false narrative in Iran.
Let's also not forget that, Marie, most of the people that are in the Iranian parliament, they either have master's degrees or PhDs. Okay, almost over half of them. And when you look back at what our parliamentarians are education-wise.
And then we have Mark Wayne Mullen.
Yeah.
I don't even understand this world. He's some type of MMA fighter that is a dude that fights like in chicken matches. Please.
Well, I mean, what do you expect when we have a president who started off as a barker in the World Wrestling League or something, WWE, right?
Yeah. Oh no, it's all of it is,
Yeah, it is surreal.
Vetting candidates. Not only should we vet them better, do all the things like a criminal background and that they have to do community service and be volunteer, all the things, but also like they need to take a cognitive test. I don't mean to be cruel, but like they must take a cognitive test because we are not getting the best and the brightest in Congress.
I totally agree with you. Reed Bible is out sick today, Marie, but he has joined us on the phone, and we got about 6 minutes to finish off the show. And Reed, are you still on with us on the phone? Okay, so he may have logged off, and Mike Patino's computer crashed today, so Mike is on the phone also.
Gosh, we've got destruction everywhere. Oh my gosh.
Hey, Mike, are you still on?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm still on. I agree wholeheartedly with Marie, of course, and we have to vet our candidates better. We just have to do the research necessary to make the right decisions for these people, because we make mistake after mistake, and we're paying the price. We're paying the price. And what Ken had to say today, once you make the decision to deploy the troops, they turn into the military mindset and they just go. Right. By that point, it's too late.
Yeah.
And we were talking also about the human cost of war on the families back home. And Chris came in with her personal story of how her dad was in. Chris, do you want to say a few words on where your dad was in service and what happened when he came back from service?
Yeah, he, like I said earlier, he was stationed at Korea first and then Vietnam twice. And my mom had 4 kids. I was the oldest. And it was real. And he did TDY for many years, almost every other Saturday or so for almost a year when we were stationed in Fort Hood, now Fort Cavazos, back to Fort Hood or something. I don't know. And he at that point, he was more into his career than he was in the family. And so there was a lot of yelling and being quiet and stay out of his way. And it was very hard on my mom as well as us kids. And that's why I wanted to ask Ken if he had some words of wisdom, not just for me, but for those who are married now, whose brother, spouse, sister, whatever, or parent is going to be deployed and they'll be coming back. And I think it's important that not just the troops are impacted with the boots on the ground, but it is their families, especially their immediate family, as far as the spouse and children are concerned. And then, of course, the parents and the siblings of the military person. And that is often overlooked. I mean, I was actually a little mini soldier, as were my siblings when we were growing up, because what they learned in boot camp, that's how you raised your family. It was the same hierarchy. It was the same standards. So yeah, we could have very easily, when we graduated high school, fallen right into the military and shot up, because we already had all the rules. We were raised with all the rules, and just do what you're told and don't think, just do what you're told. So I liked what Ken had to say. I really appreciate that he was so forthright and had lots to say and give his perspective and a little bit of guidance to the dependents of the military personnel.
Wonderful.
It was really wonderful.
Folks, you are tuned into the Lightning Strike. We come every Sunday morning from 8 to 10 on WCPT, 8:20 a.m., Chicago's progressive talk radio station. Our team is Dr. Sheila White, Congresswoman Marie Newman, Attorney Maria Mazaffar, Chris Hilbert has joined us, Mike Patino, Read Bible, and Brandon Bond has joined us from this Sunday. If you want to go back and listen to the show, we are going to be posting it on our social media, on our YouTube channel, which is at TLS Radio, and also on our Facebook page, which is again TLS Radio on Facebook. Our website is tlsradio.com for The Lightning Strike. You can always go back and listen to the show. We'll be posting it on the website and social media in about a couple of days. We usually get it done by Monday evening. And you are welcome to always reach out to us. Our guest today, we are Professor Abid Saulat, who has started a nonprofit called Darul Infaq Foundation, which he has impacted hundreds of lives locally and worldwide with the charity that he started. And also we had Ken Bentley, a Marine, who joined us with a heartfelt conversation on what it feels like to be a soldier and a boots on the ground, that our people keep on talking about boots on the ground. It's 10 o'clock. We'll be winding up our show today, and be sure to tune in next week again, same place, same time. And thank you again for listening. Thank you for watching us on Facebook Live also.